Gatakaliyugatha 5111 Vidodhi Nama Samvatsara Pushyamasa Krishna Paksha Ashtami Hasta Nakshatra, the 7th day of January 2010. Welcome you all for this Maitri Milan, Shubhodayam. According to this Indian calendar, yesterday was Swami Vivekananda Jayanti, and according to the English calendar, we observe it on the 12th, and the 12th of the January is also the convocation for this university. So this week, nice thing to hear about Swami Vivekananda. Now, since there were no other speakers, I happened to take this morning my Timbalan session. Please bear with me. We have taken up the chanting of Karma Yoga. In fact, it is most eloquent way Swami Vivekananda spoke about this Karma Yoga, and Krishna in Bhagavad Gita showed us that yoga is not something excluding ourselves from this world, but to be able to project in this world. So Karma Yoga is an essential aspect of that. That means to say, it is not that in some activity, special activity that you do, that becomes Karma Yoga. But in the day-to-day activities that we do, how we can make those activities into yoga. This is very important because normal, common human being may devote for a special practice of yoga, meditation, pranayama, asana, something like that, maybe for about an hour or 2 hours. The rest of the time, we are engaged in the normal day-to-day activity. In fact, there is no way that we can say that, come on, give up all these activities and do something very special. We cannot say that. Several years ago, I happened to go to one of the yoga conferences. There are big yogis who have come to present their talks. When I say big yogi, it is not that yogi is big in his size, but the number of students that he has, the disciples he has in the audience, that makes the yogi big, because when he says something, you can hear louder claps. So a big yogi was there on the stage, and he gave a talk where he said, I practice 17 hours of yoga every day. Wow, everybody clapped. People were impressed because here we are sitting, we are debating whether I can practice 1 hour yoga or half an hour yoga or 1 hour pranayama and some practice of asana. We are debating like that, and here is a person who can practice 17 hours of yoga. Wow, it's very impressive. So people clapped. But then I was not impressed by that statement, because if anybody has 17 hours of time, free time to do yoga, that means he doesn't take care of any family, he doesn't go to any government office to work, he doesn't go around any collectorate office or magistrate's office to sign this passes and all those things, and he doesn't go for any grocery. You know, if you don't do all those things, actually you don't have to do yoga, you are anyway peaceful. The real problem is, how can I manage my peace of mind, tranquility, the idea of yoga, while doing all these activities? Our problem is that when I am sitting peaceful, nothing really disturbs me. But my interacting with the world is the thing which is creating all kinds of problems to me. That's one of the reasons why we say that it is the karma which is giving us the problem. Let me get out of karma. Karma, you leave it so that you can be peaceful. Many people think that way. I start my yoga after my retirement. After my retirement. It can never happen. Or maybe I will come to an ashram like Prashanti Kutiram so that I can do yoga, so that I don't have to do any work. But probably you must have observed in Prashanti, everybody works right from morning 5 o'clock until 10 o'clock. At least in a government office there are certain fixed hours. Prashanti, you don't have those fixed hours. You have to work. There is no way that you can escape from the work as long as you are part of this creation. That is why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Nahi kasyit kshanamapi jatutishtatya karmakrit karyate yavashak karma. You need to do. There is no way that you can get out of work. Throwing the work out just because that we are into the problem, stress and difficulty is like the way throwing the bathtub with the baby. You know, the baby is dirty, so that you put in the bathtub and throw both of them away. That's not the way. We should be able to see that how I can manage the same work that I am doing. The work that I am doing in the farm of grocery, the work that I am doing in the cleaning of the house, washing the dishes, doing the clothes. Can I do these things in a yoga way? That's what is really making what is karma into karma yoga. Karma is not throwing away is karma yoga, transforming karma into karma yoga. It is not that the people who are doing karma yoga are doing something really very great. Like for example, if I work for a government office, it's not karma yoga. Whereas if I work for an ashram, if I do some work for a temple, that may be karma yoga. It is not that way. Karma yoga is how you can change the work that you are doing into yoga way. That's what is karma yoga. What is that which can make the karma into karma yoga? The attitude it is the attitude behind the karma. If you are doing the activity with one particular type of an attitude, then that karma becomes a burden on you, stress for you, not only stress for you, stress for others. Whereas the same karma, you do it with a different attitude, that work becomes a pleasant job, an extraordinary, wonderful progress. So, karma yoga, though the name indicates karma there, but it is more to do with the attitude than the activity that you do it. We have such great examples of karma yogis who were ruling the kingdom or who were doing the sweeping on the floor. On the floor. So these activities that we do it, how can they become karma yoga? There were so many billions of glorious were there. All that work that they have done has not become karma yoga. But then somebody like a Janaka who ruled the kingdom, the very ruling of the kingdom, Janaka converted into karma yoga. It is because the attitude behind the activity. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita suggests several beautiful indications in what way that you can change your attitude. Karma yoga has, many people opine that karma yoga has originated from Bhagavad Gita. No, actually the ideas of karma yoga you can go back as far as even Ishavasya Upanishad talks about karma. Kurvanyeveha karmani jiji vishatanam samaha tamste pretya vigachanti, etc. He says, idea is that the karma yoga has been prevailing in this culture right from the beginning of this culture itself. Only thing is that these ideas of how to change the attitude behind the karma, very explicitly Krishna gives a beautiful suggestions in Bhagavad Gita. Several of them have been quoted in this Karma Yoga Shloka Sangraha, like karma, karma, vikarma, naishkarma, etc., etc. Let me just pick up one such idea today for our discussion. I hope I will be able to cover it within this short period of time. This is about one of the shlokas which is very popular in Bhagavad Gita. In fact, the moment that anybody thinks of Bhagavad Gita, or you go to any Indian house these days, you can always see a wall plate or a statue in the house where this Gita chanting Krishna on the chariot and Arjuna that particular statue is there in everybody's house or a wall plate, and below that there is a quotation, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetuhu bhu mate sangaha astu akarmani. This is the 9th shloka quoted in the Vyasa Pushpanjali. You can see that. Karmanyevadhikaraha. Normally these people have, most of the people have translated, I came across translations that says you have a right to do the activity. Adhikara is right, and karmanyeva, that means you have a right to do the activity, but you have no right for the fruit of activity. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma karma phala hetuhu bhu. Don't keep yourself the cause for an activity. Mate sangaha astu akarmani. Let there not be any attachment to non-doing. This is how normally this has been translated. In fact, some people even put it as we have a duty to do. These are the things. But let me go a little more deep in understanding what is meant by adhikara, because understanding that gives us a very deep insight, and maybe it will help us to change our attitude. This adhikara, translating it as a right, it is wrong, in the sense that every right we talk about is associated with the remuneration that you get, the fruit that you get, not the activity itself. Like for example, a doctor's fight for a right, it is how much he should get. An employee fights for his rights, what are the benefits and perks and remuneration that he gets. See, you never fight for the activity, that when you call it as a right, it is a right for the fruit of an activity or the resultant of an activity. But here Krishna certainly delineates that adhikara from the fruit of activity, he puts it onto the activity itself. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So here to translate that adhikara as a right is not accurate. So but then what is meant by adhikara, which is much more accurate, sounds very good, and that is when you go to Adi Shankaracharya's work on Atma Bodha, before going into the details, he gives us who are all the adhikaris for going through this book. That means to say, Shankaracharya gives us that a person who does these practices like Shama, Dama, Shak Samparti, etc., and then Mumukshu, Uparati, all these things one who has there, he is the person who is an adhikari for doing this practice, going through this text. Here, adhikara seem to be more like eligibility. So, and it suits very good. To do an activity, what is required is eligibility. So, adhikara, let us try to understand it as eligibility, then it works wonderful. Because a doctor says, I would like to practice medicine, then do you have a proper degree from a recognized university? Do you have a certificate that you have obtained? Do you have a board membership? All these things are there. Yes, then you can practice medicine. Similarly, an engineer would like to do the work of an engineering. Do you have a degree for that? Are you qualified for that? So essentially, that adhikara seems to be the eligibility. And there also Shankaracharya gives to the student to have so many these eligibilities so that he can go through this particular text. So it looks wonderful to translate that adhikara as eligibility. That means to say you require to have certain eligibility to do a practice. Arjuna is standing in the battlefield to fight the war as a leader of the army. And then look at Arjuna, he has all the eligibility to be the leader of the army. That is what Krishna meant. But then there is something which is much more deeper than the eligibility. Otherwise, that word adhikara would not have found place in Bhagavad Gita. That is, whenever you have been educated, qualified, you have been trained for a particular thing, the society sacrifices so much on you. Like for example, for you to become an engineer or a doctor, your parents, they put their effort, they put their money. The teachers, they have passed on their information. The researchers gathered information so that today you could become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, whatever it is. That means to say, for you to become an engineer or a doctor or somebody having their eligibility, how many people have contributed their mind? Is it not your duty? Is it not your responsibility to repay all that whatever that they have given? In fact, that rests on us. It is not just only being educated, it is not just only acquiring the knowledge, that's good enough. Because there are so many people who have worked behind this knowledge, so that today whatever that you have become, you have to repay. And what is the way that you repay? That is, you have a responsibility to discharge that duty of an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer to the society. The society, towards the society, you have a responsibility. That is why when Krishna says karmanye vadhikarasti, that means you have a responsibility to discharge the duties of doing an activity. And this is very important because, understanding this is very important because the words in the word that you use for right in any of the Indian languages, whether you take Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Bengali, any language that you take, the word that you use for adhikara or the right, translated as right, in Indian languages is what you call it as hak. And hak does not have Sanskrit origin. Hak comes from Arabic. That means to say, in this culture for the last 7,000-8,000 years, we have been having the language which is Sanskrit based. We didn't have a word called right. We never had a word called right. If we had a word called right, we would have continued it. But this right seemed to be the word which is borrowed from the Muslim culture after their invasion in India, that we have taken this word called hak. There is no other word equivalent to hak in Sanskrit. It looks very strange because a culture which is survived for 7,000-8,000 years old did not have a word called right. In fact, on the other hand, I would say this culture survived that long, though the other cultures of the world went into the history books. This culture survived vibrant because that this culture did not have a word called right. We were always working with the responsibility. This responsibility is a very, very important word against the rights, because rights divide us, responsibilities unite us. A responsibility is the way that the nature takes care of. In fact, responsibility is something which is natural. Look at this simple bird. When the moment the bird lays eggs, he finds it responsible to see that sit on the eggs and then hatch the eggs. The mother bird gives the worm to hatch the eggs. It is feeling its responsibility. The mother bird does not run away. Not only that, even before laying the eggs, the mother bird goes round, gets the twigs, prepares that particular nest to see that the little egg is laid, and then sits on that, hatches, little bird comes out, mother goes round, gets the worms and then feeds the little bird. That means to say, mother feels the responsibility. But mother also feels responsible to see that this little bird starts flying. That's why when the little bird gains the strength of the wings to fly, the mother bird does not take care of that bird. On the other hand, you wonder how it does. Slowly picks up these little twigs from underneath that particular little bird. The little bird pushes back, frightened, because does not know that he can fly. But this mother bird takes away all those twigs. Finally, a time will come when the nest itself is not there, little bird starts flying, the mother is happy. That means to say, the mother takes that much care to see that grow this little bird into fullness. Takes the responsibility. In the nature you can see that there is so much of responsibility in this nature. In fact, you see a plant, when the plant grows big, that the roots go into the soil, you cut one side branches of the plant, that the plant sends its roots on the other side, taking the responsibility of the plant staying, the tree staying there. So that means to say in the nature, everything works on responsibility. Like if this table is there, it has 4 legs, the moment I put some weight on this table, at once these legs take the responsibility of this weight. No leg will say that, look, I cannot take the responsibility, I leave it. No. Whatever that is possible, they take the responsibility. So the nature is based on the responsibility. Same way that human being also should work with the responsibility. In a house, when there are parents are there, children are there, guest is there, each one takes care of the responsibility. How wonderful the house is. So responsibility constructs, whereas rights destructive, in the sense that the moment you say that whatever that is there, this is my right to take it, and this is not my right, how horrible it is. It separates you. Whereas responsibility brings you together. We never had any rights. In fact, if you look at the whole of Indian literature, right from the time of Mahabharata, Ramayana, etc., that you see, you only hear about responsibility, not rights. In fact, Rama, when he was put on the throne, that means actually the coronation ceremony was supposed to take place next day, and that evening, Vasishtha calls Rama and says, Rama, today is a day to celebrate for the whole of Ayodhya because they are going to have a great king. But it is not a time for you to celebrate because you should sit down and contemplate on what are your responsibilities. The king only has a responsibility. The king has no rights in the society. The same way when you look at Mahabharata, when Pandavas converted the Khandavavana into Indraprastha, an extraordinary, wonderful, beautiful place, that time Narada comes to Pandavas and he calls Yudhishthira aside and say, all the celebrations let it go on, but I would like to discuss with you about, have you taken the responsibility of the people here, the traders here, cows here, this here, that. So everything he calls about the responsibility. The king has a responsibility, the king has no rights. In this culture, the mother has no responsibility, mother has no rights, mother has responsibility. Father has no rights, father has responsibility. Children have no rights, children have responsibility. Everybody has responsibility. A teacher has a responsibility. He can nothing to rights. This whole thing, if you look at the responsibilities, not rights. What a wonderful culture this is. Because the culture talks about this responsibility. That's why the whole society was so unique, wonderfully vibrant way it was living. But when freedom, the constitution, they did not find anything to write from this culture. So that is why our constitution full of rights is based on French constitution, American constitution, British constitution, nothing to do about with Ramayana or Mahabharata. How unfortunate it is. This culture is based on responsibilities, but then the constitution works on rights, and that's the reason why there was a mismatch. We have amended the constitution 370 times, but even now we are not satisfied. Why? Because we cannot think of rights, we can think of responsibility. The whole nature takes the responsibility of this creation. But look at the way today we have human rights. I don't know, human rights against who? You mean to say that a dogs want that they have to have their rights, cats want to have their rights, animals want to have their rights? No, only human being wants to have rights. And not only, it is not against anybody else, any other creature, but human being fights his responsibility against his rights against another human being. That means to say, I should have more rights than you have. What an unfortunate thing it is. I wish that we could have created a culture which is a constitution, a country which is based on responsibility, not on rights. We would have set a model in the whole world. In fact, did we not set a model in the world that we created a country which is won the freedom based on non-violence, ahimsa? We could have built another extraordinary, wonderful example of creating a constitution which is based on responsibilities, not on rights. Karmanyevadhikaraste basically means we have responsibility to do the activity. Don't ask anything in return. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Don't ask how much you should get. Do what you have to do it. This is what is the simple idea. Karmanyevadhikaraste. Then people say, well, I'm not asking anything in return, but the good work that I do, at least I should see the good fruits. In Chennai, a group of youngsters fired with the inspiration by Swami Vivekananda, wanting to do the social service to the poor localities. They went to a slum and then went on doing service to that slum. They saw the slum is very poor, dirty, and then water is flowing everywhere, and the streets are dirty and all those things. They thought that yes, this is a good place to do the service. Morning to evening they did the whole thing. They cleaned the people, they cleaned the roads, they cleaned everything. Everything looks very beautiful. They were really satisfied. Then they thought, well, we do not want any remuneration, but at least the result is there, and that's what is something which is really attractive. So they were very satisfied, went away. A week later, again, next Wednesday, they came back to that same slum. The slum was back to the original shape. They said they did not feel disheartened because one day people do not realize. So they once again, morning to evening, they cleaned the whole place, made its pickets back. Everything was beautiful. Went away. Next Wednesday they came. Again the slum was back to the square one. But they are really fired with Swamiji's wonderful ideas. Cleaned the whole place without any remorse or anything like that. And finally everything was clean and neat. Happily satisfied, they went away. But by that time, people in Chennai knew that these are the group of youngsters, about 10 of them. They are good for social service. And meanwhile, there was some other locality where there were floods, needed people. Immediately, this group was diverted there for next Wednesday. They happened to go to another place to do the work. And then after 1 week, came back to the original slum. And they found that the slum was back to the original shape. That was all right. But more important thing is, the people in the slum, they were waiting for these people to come and ask as soon as they came, what happened to last week? Why did you not come last week? We are doing social service and we are not even being understood. Maybe the phala, that means to say we are not recognized. I don't want any change, but at least people should recognize that I am doing good work. At least that much of phala I should be able to expect. But Krishna says, no. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Don't even expect that. Great people are great because they did not even look for that recognition, look for that change. Look at Krishna. He gave this wonderful message of Bhagavad Gita. Extraordinary wonderful message. In fact, on our time he writes, as long as the sculptures are, mankind survives, Bhagavad Gita survives. Such an extraordinary message Krishna has given. And when he gave that message, 3 people heard that. We all know that. And one person who heard that is the fellow who, Sanjaya, who repeated it. Whenever we want to make sure somebody has heard clearly, is please tell me back whether you heard it clearly or not. That is what we say. So that means to make sure that Sanjaya clearly heard it because he repeated whatever that they heard to Dhritarashtra. So in spite of repeating whatever that happened in the battlefield, whatever Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, at the end of it, what happened to Sanjaya? After hearing such a wonderful message, Sanjaya remained as a wonderful national Panasonic tape recorder. Nothing better than that. Nothing improvement. So, according to the Sanjaya, then you do not give any marks for Krishna's efforts. And the other person who heard this whole of Bhagavad Gita, and because of which we have today, and that is what is Dhritarashtra who heard that. Hearing the whole of Bhagavad Gita, at the end of it, Dhritarashtra says to Sanjaya, so finally Krishna misguided Arjuna. See, this is what he expressed. That means to say nothing happened to Dhritarashtra. Alright, out of 3 people who heard, 2 did not get any benefit. That means out of 100 marks, Krishna you will give 30 marks, 33 marks. Fortunately, he was a Yadav reserved class, that's why he passed. But I have my own doubts about whether Arjuna was really benefited or not. Because Arjuna must have also been standing there and thinking, how long this fellow is going to bore? How long this fellow is going to do this, Maitri Milan session? Let me end it. Baba, I agree with you. At the end of 18th chapter, at the end of 17th chapter, 18th chapter, Arjuna says to Krishna, I accept whatever that you say, you are great, you are wonderful, everything I accept. Now no more problems, because you became a bigger problem than all other problems I have. At least let me accept it. Maybe that is what happened. But let us give the benefit of doubt to Krishna. But in spite of it, Krishna gave that message. Extraordinary. Why? It is not with an idea of converting this person that Krishna gave that message. He thought that this is a good message, give it to the mankind. That's what is important. A good work that you do it, don't look for the fruit of action, don't look even for the sake of recognizing that recognition that you get. Give it because it is a good work. In fact, looking back to see that whether I am recognized, whether people accept it, take it, is also that you do not have the confidence in the good work that you are doing. If you have confidence in the good work, you do it. Like the way Jesus Christ has done this work. Extraordinary, wonderful message. The book he has given, that's what is the Bible. And look at the result that he got, look at the fruit that he got, or the recognition that he got from the people for the wonderful message of Bible that he has given. He was crucified. He was crucified. In spite of it, he did it. Why? These are the great people. Great people are great, just they do the good work, they don't even look back. What is the fruit of it? What is the result of it? What is the recognition that we get it? That's what Krishna's message in Bhagavad Gita, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Don't look at the phala, because phala belongs to future, karma belongs to present. Be here and now. That's what is Karmanyevadhikaraste. This is the half part of the shloka. Another half, if we have a chance, we will discuss about it later on. We'll stop it here. Thank you.